My family invested $1 million in me in order to purchase a fixer-upper property here in the Bay Area. And even though that investment went very successfully, there were definitely some lessons that I learned along the way. And in this video, I want to share with you those 3 crucial lessons that I learned about mixing family with business. As an entrepreneur, family is usually the first place that we go to in order to look for funding. And they are the low-hanging fruit, and there's already that trust factor built in. But it can also be detrimental to relationships if it doesn't go well. And it's going to be my goal in this video to forewarn you about some of the things to think about and how to take the precaution so that you can have a successful investment with your family members if this is the route you're deciding to take. Or you might determine that investing with family might not be the best idea for you. I'm going to be honest with you and even share some of the mishaps that I had made and how we can avoid them for our future projects. So listen up, because I'm trying to save your relationship here. Okay, so as a quick overview, my name is Jay Coyne. I'm a Bay Area real estate agent and now a house flipper. And in the last year, I pulled together a bunch of money in order to purchase my first fixer-upper property. It went well, over 20% return. And so I definitely learned a lot. Now, if you want to see how that project turned out, click the link up here, as I've got a before and after video on my channel. And if you want more content like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button, because I'm going to be documenting more fixer-uppers and sharing all the knowledge that I learned about that on this channel with you. All right, now let's get into the video. Tip number 1 is to know your family dynamic. Are these business ready people, and are they people you can actually work with? Now, even if they're silent investors, no one's going to be silent at Thanksgiving or your family events, and everyone is going to have an opinion amongst themselves and to you. Can you handle the constant nitpicking and opinions that will be made about your decision and about your investment? And is that something you even want to deal with? Now, I come from an Asian family and we all live near each other, so I see them all the time, and their opinions are unfiltered and they will be heard. And frankly, it can start to annoy you, but you got to think to yourself, do your personalities mesh enough, and are you able to handle and navigate some of these opinions that will be thrown and made about your decisions? For me, we're a joking family. We're highly honest. And so whether it's about an investment we're doing or about my new haircut that day, I know this is how it is. And frankly, it's funny. And I've known how to deal and be okay with the different personality types of our family. That's just how we roll. But if that's something that's uncomfortable for you, well, definitely think about that moving forward. So another thing that you've got to think about is the emotional baggage your family members may carry. Have there been conflicts within the family before, and how have they been resolved? Because how that was dealt with is very likely how you will deal with situations among them in the future. Now, obviously, we don't expect that to happen, but it's definitely something that you need to plan for in the worst case scenario, because business can be tough and it can be high stress, and you don't want that disrupting your family relationships or disrupting the investment itself. If there are some conflicts that are still unresolved, that is a dynamic of the family members that you need to know as well, and really think, are these people you want a part of your investor pool? Because if shit starts to go down and things get heated and tough decisions have to be made, you got to consider if these relationships can withstand tough decisions, and if they can put their past aside, or if that stuff will be stirred back up and brought back into debate, because we don't want that. Now, my family, we're super tight-knit, and we have great communication patterns and history among them. I know they deal with any family issues or any family affairs in large business meetings, and they are very, like I said, unfiltered and speak their mind, and they get it out all on the table. But they are tight-knit and they can get through any conflict, and they have over many, many decades. There's no lingering bad feeling or ill feeling amongst them. And so with me knowing that, I knew that these were people I can work with. Now remember, family is always more important than money. So consider these aspects first before you get into business with them. Tip number 2 is to choose the right investor for this specific investment. Not the investor or family member who's just going to give you the most amount of money. Now, you want to choose someone that is aligned with the same mindset and the same goal as you. Now, me and my family went into this fixer-upper project knowing that it was going to be a learning experience. None of us had done this before. Frankly, they were trusting me as a real estate agent for 5+ years. And the fact that I've remodeled some other property for my clients, they trusted me to have the competency to know what I was doing. But we all went in with the understanding that this is going to be a learning experience, and sometimes you have to pay to learn. Now, obviously, we all want to make money and we don't want to lose money, but we've got a similar mindset in the fact that even if we don't make money, as long as we're not losing money and break even, well then, if we can take some lessons along the way, that would be a successful flip. It would have only been a time commitment at the end of the day. And frankly, well, it would have been my time that was being committed. So being aligned with that same mindset was very helpful with the amount of pressure and stress that I would have faced if this was a high risk, scenario in terms of me requiring an X amount of return for these investors. Even just the fact of being allowed to ask the stupid question and not have to fake that you knew all the answers, because we were all sort of on this learning journey together and we knew that. So it allowed us to really do our best work and attack the investment without having to fake anything, And I think on that aspect, we were all aligned, and that helped us at the end of the day do and be successful in this investment together. Now, when choosing the right investor, you also want to think about choosing someone that doesn't have a pressure for the money being invested, that they're not in a situation where they've got a need or reliance and they're all in on your investment. Ideally, you want to choose someone that's well off. We're not all in that luxury position, but the reason I say that is because an investor that's more well off and potentially has other pillars of income, well, they're not going to be as demanding in terms of when am I going to get my money back and when am I going to see my return. Possibly they are, but it less affects their life on a day-to-day basis. And so the more that investor needs the funds, well, the less flexible potentially that they might be, and the more of a sort of clawing on your back and asking you, when am I going to see my money back? Well, that's really not going to allow you to do your best work and complete the investment when it's completed. Obviously, time is a pressure for everybody, but maybe less so for someone that's super well off. And that sort of brings me to my next point of choosing an investor that potentially has a long-term vision or conviction in the investment vehicle. Because if you've got someone that has a pressure or need for this funds and doesn't have the same mindset or goal as you, well, sometimes things happen in investment where they go south and you might need to pivot or find a different exit strategy. And my family members, they're risk adverse people, but they've got a conviction and a belief in real estate as an investment themselves. They've got other properties that they own, and they know that over time, real estate appreciates, especially here in the Bay Area. And even though the flip game is short term, real estate itself is a long-term game. In the case that we were not able to sell our fixer-upper for the price that we wanted, or if we were going to lose money, well, we had another backup plan or a exit strategy that we could hold the property and even rent it out until we were able to get the return that we wanted for the property. Now, if someone had a pressure and need for those funds, they might not be able to pivot as much as we were able to. Luckily, we didn't get to that point. Okay, we held it for 13 months and sold it right when the property was finished. But you got to think about worst case scenarios, and you don't want to be in a position to be forced to sell your project when it's not ready, or to have to maybe buy out another investor if you can't afford it. It'd be a lot harder to deal with in the end, and just not an ideal situation for everybody or for you as a head of your investment. So when choosing the right investor, think about having an aligned mindset, doesn't have a pressure or reliancy on the funds invested, and can share a same long-term vision and have a conviction in the investment vehicle. So tip number 3 is to implement the safety guards for your investment. And this means setting the role and legal clarity early. So even if you've got to speak with a lawyer, you've got to make sure that everything you have is on paper. Now, even though my family is high trust, we're smart enough to know that it doesn't exist unless it's on paper. So what we did was created an LLC, which laid out the equity percentages for everyone involved in the investment. We also opened up a joint bank account and deposited funds into that investment. And so everything from the equity, the bank statements, and all the receipts from the project, etc., was all documented. So everyone had known what to expect, because trust is great, but legal clarity is what's going to save the relationship. And if there's any dispute, well, you know where to look and what outlines it. So anything you can, make sure you have it written down, who owns what is what, etc. Now, there was one thing that I failed to clarify, and that was about my commission. And this is something that I definitely take full responsibility on, and was a mishap on my part. At the end of our deal, again, I was the real estate agent on the purchase as well as on the sale. And at the end of the deal, well, the closing statement came in, and at a time when we all should have been celebrating and on a high for this very successful sale, well, one of the investors was surprised about my cut for the commission. I was the project manager for the last 13 months, and I did everything for the property. And my commission was a standard rate that I charge my listing clients for the role of selling the property. Now, this was something that was very awkward and made everyone at the last minute think about money. And it certainly is something that should have been handled with more transparency early on to avoid this friction. It still ended up okay, and we're all extremely happy, but it's definitely something that needed to be emphasized a lot more up front. It wasn't put out there with absolute clarity of this was what I was receiving as a commission, and maybe swept under the rug a little bit too much, along with all the other stuff that we were doing with the property. So when you think you have disclosed everything, just remember there's always more to disclose, and there's always more to be transparent about. So even with contracts and having stuff written down, stuff can always come up. So you also need to have the conversations early on about the roles. Who handles what? In my case, who designs what about the house? And well, who gets paid what and how much and when? Okay, so we don't want that dispute again. But this had come up again in another lesson regarding the backsplash design. And at the time to make the material purchase for the backsplash, I got vetoed out of my design choice. And the family members, well, they presented a choice which I knew for almost fact that it was the wrong choice to make. I think I've got good design taste, and well, I'm experiencing what buyers want. Because of that, I had to make an executive decision, but we did not have, rules set out about who was going to be making executive decisions or who was in charge of the design, which this all would have been easily dealt with if we had. But I made the call to put the backsplash that I wanted because it was a lot more appropriate for the house. I made that decision and I made that call. And if it was any other family, well, that could have ended up in a big dispute or a big war amongst us. But I had known from their personalities, their dynamic, etc., that they didn't really care. I mean, this wasn't a passion project for them in order to see their design come into fruition. They care about the result, and they always have. I made the call because I believed that would give us the best result, and ultimately it did. Now, I was lucky to have great family members, but it is certainly something that you need to think about, because I don't want to go through that again to be vetoed out, have too many voices on design so that it's not cohesive, or as they say, too many cooks in the kitchen. Really, one person needs to be in charge of all of this. And that's something that you need to define early on. So to wrap it up, if you are thinking about investing with your family, well, you got to consider this. Vet their mindset, not just their wallet. Talk early and often about roles, money, timelines, and expectations. Put everything, I mean everything, in writing. So now I want to ask you, have you invested with your family members before? And how did that turn out? Let us know in the comments below, because we would love to hear your story, and you might help someone else make the right decision. I'm certainly going to be investing with them again. We're already in the middle of another fixer-upper project. We have that on my channel as a full walkthrough, so if you would like to see that, definitely check it out. And if you want more content like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button, because I'm going to be learning a lot more things about investing, about fixer-uppers, real estate, etc. And I'm going to hope to share what I learn with you. But there you have it, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you clicking on this video and making it this far. Would love to see you here again. So I'll see you on the next one. Take care.